Russia was a country, I think the only country where Jews never entered it, were never invited in, or the nobility never desired them to come in. Russia got its huge Jewish population by basically expanding westward during Peter the Great, Catherine the Great, and chopping up Poland between the Austro-Hungarian Empire on the western side, what was Galicia and Poland, and the eastern side, which became what's today mostly the Ukraine, part of the Russian Empire. And the Russian czars were uniformly bad. They went from bad to worse. Horrendous persecution of Jews, forcibly drafting Jews into the army, Jews locked out of economic professions, physically confined to a very large area. It was an extremely difficult period of time for Jews. And the Jewish people's attitude towards the Tsarist Russian government was understandably extremely hostile. But what's most fascinating about this story is Napoleon Bonaparte. We're talking about in the very early 19th century, after gaining control of France, after the French Revolution, embarks on a campaign of conquest of all of Europe. He conquers all of Europe. He gets all the way out to Russia, and he makes his way through Eastern Europe. And as Napoleon is coming towards Eastern Europe, the Jews living in Eastern Europe, and what is the Russian Empire, ask their rabbis a question: who should we be supporting? Should we support Napoleon? Now, Napoleon was actually a person who championed the emancipation of Jews, who literally had ghetto walls ripped down and demanded that Jews be emancipated and let out of the ghettos and be free to join European society. He seemed openly to be much more friendly and sympathetic to the Jewish cause. Jews went to their rabbis in Eastern Europe. Napoleon's coming. Who should we support? The Tsar or Napoleon. What's interesting is most people would probably think the rabbis would have said Napoleon. The reality is the rabbis said the Tsar. You should side with the Tsar. And the question is why? And the answer is, better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And the rabbis, with their wisdom and foresight, saw that as bad as the Tsars were, the negative pressure of living under that hostility kept Jews Jewish. What Napoleon was bringing was a much greater threat: emancipation, and the threat of assimilation and the disappearance of the Jewish people, being loved to death by the non-Jews as opposed to being forcibly confined by the hatred of the non-Jewish world. And in hindsight, we see that's basically what happened. What Napoleon and the forces of the Enlightenment were able to do to the Jewish communities that they impacted ended up being, in many ways, far more destructive to Jewish continuity and Jewish identity than the worst persecution that the Tsars were ever to force on the Jewish people.